Hello everybody and welcome to another season of Cyclone InCYders. My name is Matt Van Winkle. I'm going to introduce you guys to our panel here. We're going to be live every Monday at 8 p.m. right here on ISUtv Mediacom Channel 18. To my right, Mr. Matt Rhoades. He's the co-sports director at ISUtv this semester, and he was a former anchor for ISUtv, and he's also the beat reporter for the ISU men's basketball team. Matt, thanks for joining us, man.
Yes, thank you, Matt. It's great to be on. I look forward to being on more as the season progresses and as the show goes on as well.
To my immediate left, Mr. Dean Berhow-Goll. He joined us a few times last semester, filling in for Sam Turner, but now he's the official co-host of Cyclone InCYders. Dean, thank you for joining us.
Always a pleasure.
And to my far left is Mr. Kody Pederson, and he is also the beat reporter for ISUTV's men's basketball. Kody, thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
As you can tell, we are live this semester, not doing post-production as opposed to last semester, guys. We're changing things up a little bit. I hope you're okay with that. Is that okay?
Yeah,
we're going to do a little bit of a roundtable discussion as opposed to, maybe, strict segments. So it's going to be a little bit more lax this semester. But I think we're going to jump right into things, guys, and talk a little bit of men's basketball. Does that sound okay? Mm-hmm. Okay, cool. Obviously, the ISU men's basketball team is a little bit, started off Big 12 play with that loss at Lawrence, Kansas. Dean and you were there.
Yep.
Previous to that, though, the non-conference portion of the schedule, 10-3, couple tough losses on the road, Cincinnati and UNLV. Go on the road to Iowa, lost there. 3 tough losses, but okay, 10-3. You're pretty happy with that, Dean, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, I think going into non-conference play, they had a couple tough games in there. They traveled to Las Vegas. They play UNLV. Play Cincinnati. That's a darn good team in the Big East. Got a lot of really good guard play over there with Kashmir Wright. I think they have to be pleased. It reminds me a lot of last year's team, a little hiccups here and there, but now in the Big 12 season, they did lose at Kansas. They were a bank shot away from stealing that one in Kansas. Picked up a pretty solid win, definitely a resume builder against Kansas State. So right now, I think that they're happy where they are. 2 tough losses to ranked teams in the non-conference schedule, Kody. UNLV and Cincinnati. They're running out of games against these ranked teams. Obviously, Kansas. And then last week, a big win against Kansas State. But do you think, though, that there's enough games on the schedule for ISU to make a chance to have a chance to make the NCAA tournament?
Yeah, the Big 12 isn't as strong as it has been in the past, but there are still enough good teams. Mm-hmm. They're going to be able to pick up some wins, or at least have the opportunity to get those wins to build on their resume. Beating teams like Oklahoma, Baylor, teams that maybe aren't in the top 25 right now, but are still solid NCAA teams that I could help them, build their own resume.
Matt, you were at the game against Kansas State last Saturday. How important was that win for Iowa State, do you think? Obviously, their first win against a ranked opponent, coming back after a tough loss to Texas Tech, really a game that Cyclone fans were really down about, weren't sure quite where the team was at that point, coming off a kind of iffy win against TCU on the road. But to lose that game to Tech and come back against Kansas State, I really learned a lot about this Iowa State team and what they're really made of, Matt.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more with that. And I think, and we'll cover a little bit more on Corey Lucius, how we called that team meeting.
Right.
But I think that really helped solidify the relationship and, as he said, get their heads on straight. Because that was an incredibly un-ISU-like performance from them, offensively and defensively.
Let's talk about that team meeting that Corey Lucius did hold. Dean, you and I heard that. I think all of us actually heard it after the postgame there. Georgie Nane kind of brought it up, and I don't know if it was necessarily supposed to be leaked out there that it was a team meeting, kind of a private team meeting. Today, Coach Hoiberg was talking about, when he was a player, guys had those kind of meetings, and when the team's down, you feel like something's not quite clicking. You want to hold those team meetings. And the senior captains, I think it was Lucius and Clyburn, were the 2 guys that really spearheaded this, and it seems like it really paid off for him, Dean.
Yeah, I had some questions coming into the season. About that leadership last year. You look at a guy like Royce White, Scott Christopherson, Chris Allen. These guys have a lot of experience, and that was my concern. Mm-hmm. In the non-conference schedule, I didn't know exactly where they were going to find that leadership. They didn't have that guy that they could go to down the stretch. Yeah. Now you see him in the Big 12 play. You heard about Lucius calling that team meeting. You see that Lucius has picked up his play. Clyburn just picked up his second Big 12 Rookie of the Week award. And so if I'm Iowa State, I'm feeling a little bit more comfortable than maybe I was a couple weeks ago when they are sneaking out wins in the non-conference season.
Does this team, Kody, think has a true leader? I mean, it seems like when everybody's out there on the floor, they're scoring from everybody from 1 through 5, it seems to be contributing. And it really seems to me that, everybody when they're out there seems to be working well together, and there's not really a true leader. I think you could make an argument now for Corey Lucius, maybe that he is that team leader, based on the fact that like you said, he called the team meeting. Seems to be his game's elevating right now. But doesn't it seem like to you that there's almost 5 leaders out there?
I think you're dead on when you say that. And I think George Niang has mentioned this before, how they're all winners and they all have contributed to some kind of leadership. It's not just one guy. Sometimes it's nice if it is your point guard, especially being a 5th-year senior in Lucius. But like Niang mentioned, these guys are all leaders. Yeah. And, when they have a team meeting like that, there's not just one guy leading them, but all of them.
I think what's interesting to me is the play of George Niang. And really the leadership, as you mentioned, George Niang just as a freshman.
Right.
I don't think really anybody, I think we all expected him to be good. I don't think I expected him to be this good and contribute this much. I mean, that Kansas game was only his second start. He started against Omaha earlier in the non-conference schedule. But Hoiberg decides to go with Niang in the Kansas game, a big rule. I mean, that game, he could have, I don't want to say he could have become an Iowa State legend with a win down there. But, that game that got away from them could have been, it would have been historic for Iowa State. And George Niang was a big part of them for even being in that game. Starts out the game with 8 straight points. Matt, are you surprised at all by the play of George Niang so far this year?
I can't say that I'm surprised about it. What I really like from George Niang is his emotion. I think that's one thing that you and I both talked about at the game when we saw him after he had a pretty big play. Yeah, I believe he dodged the defender. Yep. And drained a 3 and just had incredible emotion after the game. And I think he really gets the crowd and the team riled up. When we asked Will today how he's kind of a quiet guy. Yep. And I think George is that opposite deal. And I like that about him.
I think you could say that he's quiet, but I also think that we've seen him, like you said, after that West Virginia game, after he scored the go-ahead basket, there was still a few seconds left on the clock. You guys were at that game. Did you think he was going to go run into the stands? I've never seen that.
That's exactly what I thought of when you mentioned George Niang and his emotion. You see his goofiness, his how much he loves playing the game, and it's such an opposite of a lot of guys on this Iowa State team in terms of how expressive they are on the court. And Hoiberg said that after the West Virginia game. He was worried, probably more of a sarcastic tone, whether or not he was going to give back on defense. You've got to love the way that Niang is playing. He's averaged about 11 points a game, about 5 rebounds from a freshman. I didn't expect him to come in and start. I thought he was going to be a solid guy off the bench. But at the beginning of the year, Hoiberg raved about this guy's IQ. I didn't expect it to be this high.
I think that he's still got a lot of improvement to do, though. He's still a freshman. He's still got that baby fat. Baby fat, exactly. You can see it on him, too. And Hoiberg said that. He is still a raw player. And for him to be playing like he is I think you could make a case for him being the best freshman in the Big 12. Obviously, Ben McLemore is that guy right now. Redshirt freshman. But as a true freshman, it's a good point. True freshman to come in there and contribute like he's doing. I think he's still got a lot to learn and a lot to improve on, Kody.
For sure, and he's just starting to get a little bit more attention nationally.
Absolutely.
Guys like McLemore do have the national pub right now. Yeah. But George is getting better and more consistent. Early in the season, he might have a 15-point game, but then disappear the next game. Now he's showing up, now he's starting. He's showing up every game, especially in conference play. As Iowa State gets more attention, so does George.
I think you've made it when you've had a giant sign put up in the student section that people hold up, the moving arms and everything. I think that's when you've made it.
Yeah, he has.
You guys agree? Yeah, obviously. Okay, and as you mentioned earlier, Dean, Will Clyburn earning his second Big 12 Rookie of the Week. He's 22, winning Rookie of the Week. I think a lot of guys were joking about that with him.
He loves being called Rookie.
Yeah, that's what Tyrus McGee was joking about today, that he loves being called the Rookie. But that's a big honor for him. He definitely had a great performance against Kansas State and down there in Texas Tech. Obviously, it was a loss, but he led the team with 12 points, I believe, that game. Will Clyburn really been stepping up, Dean.
I honestly think that Clyburn is a bit of a microcosm of how Iowa State's season has gone. He was quiet early on in the season. I wrote this early in November and told everybody that you have to give this team time, much like last year's team. You look at Clyburn and Lucius, everybody was worried about how they're going to be playing this season. Lucius would turn the ball over. Clyburn disappeared. He went scoreless earlier this year. And now he's starting to pick it up, 14 points a game, second on the team in rebounding. He's a top 10 Big 12 rebounder. Yeah. Hoiberg said that about him. He's a guy that can go get out and get 10 more rebounds a game. But I think the way that they've stepped up, I think as they go, Iowa State goes. And as of right now, as of this Kansas State game and moving forward, Iowa State's starting to go.
I think the one thing, Kody, that surprised me the most about Clyburn is that his three-point percentage is down. He hasn't really shot as many three-pointers as we may have thought. But I think that's more because they've turned him in from that point guard, that 1-2 spot, to maybe a 4 guy. He's only made 23 pointers this year. I think he almost averaged about 40% when he was at Utah. And was that a little bit surprising to you to see his 3-point numbers down?
Yeah, it was something that I was really expecting coming into the year. Over 40% is a really good percentage, no matter the competition. And I think he's down around 28, 27%. But he does have the game where he can handle the ball a little bit. And with Boo Boo coming back, they've moved Clyburn to the 4, got him out in the perimeter so he could take his guy one-on-one a little bit.
Yeah.
And I think that was really effective, especially against K-State.
That's a good point. Let's move forward to talking about Tyrus McGee, really that solid 6 guy off the bench for Iowa State. Comes in, really that spark plug for Iowa State, right? When they need a basket, you see Coach Hoiberg point right down the bench to Tyrus McGee. Really been that catalyst for Iowa State. I think he's second in the team in points per game, averaging just almost 13 points per game, and just lights out 3-point shooter, Matt.
Yeah, absolutely. And you can kind of hear Hilton hold their breath once he gets the ball, because it's like they almost expect him to make that 3 ball. You know what I mean? And when you see the ball come to his hands, you expect him to get outside the arc if he's not already there and shoot the ball.
Dean, I think a lot of people are questioning Coach Hoiberg's decision to have him come off the bench. Obviously, that role seems comfortable to him, and he agrees. He said that he's comfortable in that spot, and that's where Hoiberg likes him to play. Do you think, though, that he'd be more effective as a starter, or do you like him off the bench?
I like him off the bench because what a lot of people don't understand, and Hoiberg's said this time and time again, he plays as many minutes as a starter. And he plays just as many minutes as these guys. He just comes off the bench.
Yeah.
And when he provides that spark when Iowa State's in a lull, that's when he's the most effective. And if he stays out of foul trouble, against Kansas State, I think he was 4 of 6 and 3 of 4 from behind the arc, and he played, I think, maybe 20 minutes in the game. So if this guy stays on the floor and doesn't get in foul trouble, he's much more effective. He's leading the Big 12 in 3-point field goals made. I think he's probably top 3 in percentage. The guy's in heat check mode the second he crosses half court line.
Is it crucial, do you think, Kody, that he is that big factor on offense? Do they need him to win games, you think? Is that if Tyrus McGee doesn't come off the bench and produce, is Iowa State going to struggle, do you think?
They do have a lot of guys that can score, but they need Tyrus's instant offense and instant energy off the bench.
I agree.
Sometimes he comes up, he's got quick hands on defense, he'll get a steal here or there. He's a good rebounder for a guard. His role is definitely to be that lights-out shooter, and he's really been perfect in that role.
Well, if you really take away Tyrus McGee, you're not really getting a whole lot of production off the bench. Percy Gibson and Anthony Booker really haven't done a whole lot this year. Percy Gibson is a guy that has been taking good shots, but they're just not falling for him. I think Hoiberg mentioned that today. He's just taking shots, and they just don't seem to falling like they were last year.
He did, and Hoiberg kind of said, he threw him on the bench as kind of a message, not only to him but to the other guys as well. If you put in the work, then you're going to get playing time.
Right.
But obviously, not to say that he hasn't been putting in the work necessarily, but it just hasn't been the right work.
Right.
I think what a lot of people are missing about McGee, Hoiberg makes so many references to the NBA, the way that, when he was a scout, when he was working in the front office, when he's always been in the NBA. McGee is like a Manu Ginobili of the Spurs. Nobody thinks about him coming off the bench. People forget about Sixth Man of the Year, James Harden, his scoring impact, the Clippers' Jamal Crawford.
Yeah.
That's his role. It doesn't mean that it needs to start, but when he comes in with that second unit, when Clyburn's tired, when Lucius is tired, when all these guys maybe fatigued 5-6 minutes in the game, getting that first wind out of the way, he comes in and he provides that spark. That is absolutely essential.
All right, let's move on to Iowa State's leading rebounder. It's a guy that, he had a great start to the season, was leading the team, almost averaging a double-double coming into Big 12 play. Obviously, Melvin Ejim is who I'm talking about. Almost averaging, it's still a double-double, 10.5 points, 9.5 rebounds per game. He's a guy that can kind of quietly go in there and pull in 10 rebounds. It seems like almost at halftime he's got almost double-digit rebounds, double-digit points, and he's just a guy that really has impressed me so far.
He's averaging 10.5, 9.5, just one of the quietest players in college basketball. But he's so smart. He doesn't turn the ball over, and he's only 6'6". That's what a lot of people don't understand. He's a 6'6" forward playing the 4 spot, and he is far and away the leading rebounder in the Big 12. The guy is so quiet. He's the most important asset on this team, and people don't even know about him.
Yeah, Melvin Ejim, what do you think, Kody?
Yeah, I completely agree with that. As far as being the MVP. But one thing that I've really been impressed with this year is even though he doesn't shoot a lot of threes, when he does, they usually go in. He's having his best shooting year, and his stroke looks a ton better than his freshman year.
Yeah, he's shooting about 40%, 41%.
And he did bank one in on Saturday, but I haven't seen it. That was probably his ugliest one all year, and it still went in.
Right. And then let's move on to, we already talked about a little bit McGee. Let's talk about Corey Lucius, though.
Sure.
I think that he's the guy that really needs to be playing well for Iowa State. I think they almost need a little bit more scoring. I'd like to see a little bit more scoring out of him coming in, as that Michigan State transfer. He was obviously that point guard. Played in some big games for Michigan State, made a couple big shots for them. He's got a lot of tournament experience. I think that's going to pay off for Iowa State down the stretch, Matt. I think that's going to be crucial for Iowa State. If they want to make the postseason, have a run in the Big 12 tournament, that they're going to need Kody Lucius facilitating the ball, not turning it over like he was doing the first half of the season.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree more. And, they were saying earlier in the season that, he was kind of, I don't want to say sloppy, but doing some kind of street ball. They kind of...
Doing too much.
Yeah, doing too much and just maybe getting a little fancy on some plays. Yeah. And I think that lately he's really toned it down. And like you said, he's really stepped into the leadership role as well.
Yeah, and when he turns the ball over, it just seems like Iowa State's out of rhythm. They just need him to be performing on all cylinders, dishing the ball out, scoring points, doing everything for Iowa State.
He's just found his niche. Early on in the season, he really struggled, and Hoiberg was quite frankly, this guy was getting tired of hearing questions about his point guard. He told us over and over, Kory's going to be fine. And now he is.
True.
Against Kansas State, he has 7 second-half assists, and people kind of forget about that. He goes 8 assists, 3 turnovers. He's taking care of the ball now. He's knocking down shots when he needs to. One major play I was thinking of against West Virginia. He dribbles down the left side, runs into a big. Early on in the season, maybe he tries to force it, maybe he tries to force the layup. Instead, he dribbles back out, knocks down a 3. The guys, he's just needed to find his niche, and I think he's done that now that he's played more games. People forget, he didn't play basketball for a year and a half.
Yeah.
That is a long, long time.
Tough. You're playing against your own teammates in practice on the scout team, but it's not the same as playing in Big 12 games, in games that really matter.
Yeah.
I think that was a good discussion, guys, about where we're kind of at with the season, kind of a recap of everything else. Let's move forward to the game on Wednesday against Oklahoma State in Stillwater, Gallagher-Iba Arena, one of the toughest places to play. I think it's an underrated place in the Big 12 to play. Actually, we're going to play an interview right now. Coach Fred Hoiberg had a press conference earlier today talking about the challenges the Oklahoma State Oklahoma State Cowboys, are going to present to Iowa State on Wednesday.
Obviously, for us, it's been extremely tough. We haven't won there since '88. We have certainly had our chances the last 2 years. Lost in overtime 2 years ago, and then last year Nash hits the shot. We get a shot blocked at the buzzer. Chris Allen, if I remember correctly, had 6 threes in that second half, and we put the ball in his hands to make a play in that final possession, and Nash made a heck of a play to block it. So we've had our chances. But yeah, it's historically, for me, when I played there, they didn't have the addition on yet, and it was as loud as any place. Now with the new arena, we've had a couple bad breaks, but we're going to go down there, and I'm confident our guys will be ready.
It's a road game for one. It's always hard to play at another person's place. Going on and taking care of business, preparation is the main key. Making sure everybody's focused. And going down there and playing Cyclone basketball, really. It's tough to win, like I said before. It's been about 25 years since Iowa State's won down there. So we're looking forward to try to get that victory Wednesday.
What kind of situations does Marcus Smart pose?
He's a beast. He's 6'5", 230, and he starts at the point guard for him. So, we're going to have to get creative in our matchups and, try to throw some different looks at him. But he's a kid that can, do it all. I remember talking to Billy Donovan last year, and on their under 18 team, he thought that Marcus Smart was their best player just because of his overall ability to get everybody involved and make the right play. He's just, I think he's a winner, and he's going to be a big key to try to have to slow him down if we're going to have a chance to win this game. Will's quiet by nature. He has gotten more vocal as the season has gone along. He's stepped up his leadership. I think it was a big step that those guys met as players only here this last week before the Kansas State game. And I'm sure Will stepped up and said some things. I don't know exactly what happened in that meeting. I don't know I want to. I had players only meetings when I was on the court, and you can hash a lot of things out when you do that. And a lot of times, those guys go in there and they say a lot of things that need to be said. Sometimes some personal things. But afterwards, everybody goes out, and it looked to me like they got on the same page after that players only meeting. And I'm sure all the seniors stepped up and said something.
I don't know. I just kind of felt like after the Texas Tech game, I think we all just need to really kind of refocus and know that it's a lot more season to play. And this game Saturday was probably one of the biggest games of the season. And after that loss against Tuesday, I knew we just needed to bounce back. So I just called the meeting to make sure everybody's heads was on straight, make sure we came in and did what we had to do for the next game.
You know, the biggest thing we talk to Will about all the time is you got to go manufacture your own, whether he gets a defensive rebound and pushes down and gets us into an offense or goes and crashes the offensive glass. Those are ways that Will can really get himself involved. You know, when we're running plays for Tyrus, for example, where, you know, he gets a little bit stagnant and maybe in the corner. So, you know, Will's a guy that can do that because of his ability to get it off the glass and his ability to push the ball down the floor. And also his ability to offensive rebound, and he's been much better in that area these last couple games.
I was going out there and trying to play hard and just let the game come to me. When you play hard, usually good things happen. And
Will's one of the most versatile players in the country, in this league, and we know what he can do every night, crashing the glass, scoring points, so there's nothing less that we expect from him. He in the gym every day working on his game, so I mean, 20 and 10 is expected from him, really. Anything less than that is really a disappointment. So hopefully he can keep it up throughout the year.
Just have to come out with the right mindset that we're going to look to get out and run. That's what we do best. But if it's not there, we get it out. And I'm confident with our spacing and the way that we've played the last few games. And, you know, I think Corey has done a terrific job of getting us in a set and making simple plays. You know, George has made a lot of plays for us out there. Will, obviously. You know, and getting our guys shots. So if the break's not there, I think our guys have done a tremendous job of getting us into an action, and then our spacing has been very, or at least last game was very good.
So there you have it. There's Fred Hoiberg and some of the Cyclone seniors' take on the Cowboys and really about Will Clyburn and kind of his play this year. But let's talk about the Cowboys. They come into this game 13-5 overall, 2-2 in the Big 12. Losses to Kansas State, OU, and Baylor, so I guess 2-3, sorry. So a couple tough losses to some good teams, though. And as we were mentioning in the break there, the Big 12, about 2-7 now, with Iowa State beating Kansas State. Really, there's a lot of teams that are just have a chance to win that number 2, maybe even take over the number 1 spot against Kansas if something crazy happens. But really, I think this Oklahoma State team really has a shot to, I think they were picked second in the preseason Big 12 to finish, so they've got a good shot to make a run too, Zine.
They've got so much young talent.
Yeah.
They had, this year they have Marcus Smart. They bring in Phil Forte. Last year they have LeBrian Nash. They've got some big-time talent.
Yeah.
They just haven't really put it all together. Baylor's a good team. Oklahoma's a good team. And K-State's a good team. The Big 12 is so fluid this year. If Iowa State beats Kansas in Lawrence, you're looking at a 1 through probably 7 or 8. That could finish anywhere. And so I think that this Oklahoma State team, even though they've lost all 3 of those games, they're going to be dangerous. And Iowa State hasn't won there since the 1980s.
1988. March 2nd, 1988.
Wow.
Iowa State went down to Gallagher Arena, 97-88 victory for Iowa State. So yeah. 25 years.
That's a tough place to play. I'm sure everybody's happy to see Keaton Page out of there. That man was a hero to all of us short basketball players. But Oklahoma State, they're talented. They're talented.
Dean, you brought up Marcus Smart. I want to point him out. They're averaging about 13 points per game. He's a freshman, 6'4". Point guard.
That is a big, strong man. He's leading the Big 12 in steals. He's a defensive nightmare. That's going to be something to watch. Corey Lucius on Marcus Smart. How well Corey Lucius takes care of the ball there. You're going to want to watch Chris Babb chasing around LeBrian Nash, much like he did against Rodney Magruder. On paper, you see Magruder gets 13 and 7. But off of paper, you see that's a fast break dunk. One of them is against Edgem.
Yeah.
And Babb chased him down. He played all 40 minutes. And so he's probably going to do the same thing against LeBrian Nash. Try to frustrate him. That's just a few things that I've got my eye on.
Markel Brown is another guy leading the Cowboys in points, 15 points per game. He's going to be another guy. They've got 4 guys, almost 5, that are averaging double figures, similar to Iowa State. But they're not averaging a whole lot of points. That's really about it. There's a pretty significant drop off after that. But I think these teams, Kody, are pretty similar in the way they play.
Right, yeah, they want to get up and down. Yeah. I know Markel Brown last year, we really had issues with him, at home and in Stillwater. He had a few posterizing dunks on us in a couple games. Kind of embarrassing, he was chirping at our players.
Yeah.
They're both athletic. They want to get up and down, dunk as much as they can, shoot some three-pointers, and their athleticism is going to give us issues, I think.
The Cowboys are 3-0, Matt, at home. This is a very tough place to play, a tough team. They're 3-3, so all the 3 losses came on the road. So how is Iowa State going to overcome this? They're coming off that tough loss on the road to Tech. this team needs to find a way to win on the road if they want a chance to get back to the tournament this year.
Absolutely, and I think they need to feed off the momentum of the K-State game here. Obviously, I think Texas Tech is out of their mind, hopefully, and they're they're going to go back onto a winning road mentality. So obviously, like you were saying, the teams are very similar as far as record. Points scored, Oklahoma State is a little bit less. They have played one less game than Iowa State, I believe. But they still have just over 100 points less averaging than Iowa State. So,
Dean, why do you think this team struggles on the road so much? I mean, it seems like every time they hit the road, their scoring numbers are down. It seems like, with the exception being that Kansas game, I think they really need to kind of learn from that game if you want to win on the road in the Big 12. That's a good example of it.
I'm not one to drink the Kool-Aid of the Hilton Magic Kool-Aid, but I honestly think that this team feeds off that crowd. I mean, there's no question about it. I mean, the attendance numbers are up at football. The attendance numbers are up in basketball. I think that they feed off the crowd. They look for that energy. I mean, you think about Niang pumping his chest, looking to the crowd. I think that's just something that they need to figure out. I mean, again, going back to this team's inexperience with Clyburn and Lucius as the leaders. Last year, you have Scott Christopherson, you have Chris Allen, you have Royce to go to whenever you need a bucket, like Hoiberg said. But this year, this team's still trying to figure out a way to win on the road, a way to win just in general. So they still have a little ways to go. I think they're just going to need to keep looking to that senior leadership like they have.
Looking back to last year's game, obviously Scotty hit that 3 at the buzzer last year to beat Oklahoma State at home. Down there in Stillwater last year, Iowa State was right there. I think Chris Allen, the coach, say today, he hit 6 3-pointers in that game to keep Iowa State in that game. I mean, they're going to need some sort of performance down there, I think. And maybe it's Tyrus McGee. I don't know. Maybe it's a Corey Lucius that goes out there. Cody, what do you think? Who's going to have to step up tomorrow for Wednesday for Iowa State?
I think it's still got to be Clyburn.
Okay.
Clyburn and Niang, I think, are the difference makers out there on offense. Especially Niang. I think the offense is just a little bit more fluid with him in the game because he can take it in the post, but he's also a good passer. And it's going to take a special performance out of one of those guys to keep them in the game.
Yeah, and I think the reason that they struggled so much down there in Lubbock against Tech was Edgem and Niang were in foul trouble late on. I mean, that wasn't a huge time, but I think it was 3 or 4 minutes there where they really could have used those big bodies to get some rebounds. I mean, you look how important Niang was at the end of that West Virginia game. Was in foul trouble early on in that game, stayed out of foul trouble throughout the end, and was able to stay in and get some big baskets for Iowa State down the stretch. So they're going to need everybody to stay out of foul trouble. What do you think, Matt?
Absolutely. I mean, and that's same as it goes for every other game, of course. But this is a game where the pressure is on, and like we were saying earlier, every win counts. And it's going to be a tough game at a very loud, packed house.
Quick predictions here, guys. What do you think? Who comes out on top in this game?
Well, it is. They haven't won in 25 years. Oklahoma State's a very talented team, and I also think that the secret's kind of out for a game plan against Iowa State. You look at TCU, you look at West Virginia, you look at Texas Tech. They slowed them down, took them out of their transition offense, and then what that turns Iowa State's offense into at times is you'll see them trying to go one-on-one, and that's not what they want to do. They want to execute and they want to get in transition, but when they can't, they've got to be able to run their sets and they've got to be able to score in the half-court offense. I want to take Iowa State just because this team just beat Kansas State. I think I will. I'll take Iowa State in a single-digit win.
You look at Iowa State, what they did against Texas, a really powerful win at home. Then they go on the road against TCU and really just play a snoozer game. I mean, it looked like they didn't even wake up. Cody, how does Iowa State get their first win in Stillwater in 25 years?
I said it's going to take a special effort. It's not something I can really see happening. It's been 25 years since they've won down there. They've won at Kansas 5 times, I think, since then. So it's college basketball. It's tough to win on the road, especially in these tough venues. And I think Oklahoma State is just a bad matchup for Iowa State athletically. They've got big, strong guys that can match up pretty well with us.
Rhoadesy?
Well, I'm gonna have to agree with Cody on that one. I'll agree with Dean as far as the single digits goes, but I'm gonna have to give the win to the Cowboys on this one.
Yep, I think I'm gonna go with Oklahoma State too. I think these are 2 really good teams, though. I think that it's gonna be a really good basketball game. Iowa State, if they show up, I think you're right. I think it's gonna be in the single digits. I think it's gonna be a very close game. I think somebody for Iowa State, I think you're right. It might be a Will Clyburn that just steps up once again, gets 20 plus points, 10 rebounds. I think they're going to need that kind of effort. But I don't know. I think this Oklahoma State team is really good at home. It's going to be tough. Obviously, Iowa State has played some good games on the road, some really poor games on the road. So it's going to be interesting to see. Guys, good segment. I think we we learned a lot about this team, and I think that we can learn a lot from this team moving forward. I think this is going to be a good game to look forward to.
Yeah, it's going to be a great game.
Yeah. All right, coming up after the break, we're going to bring on Iowa State Daily beat writer Stephen Koenigsfeld, the women's basketball beat reporter for the Daily. Won't want to miss it. You're watching Cyclone InCYders. Welcome back to Cyclone InCYders. Matt Van Winkle, Dean Berhow-Goll, Kody Pederson, and now we add Stephen Koenigsfeld to the Cyclone InCYders panel. Thanks for joining us, Stephen.
Hey, thanks for having me, Matt. I'm really excited about talking some women's hoops.
Making his ISUtv debut today. He's a little bit nervous, but we'll get through it, I promise, okay? It's not too bad. All right, so let's look back a little bit, Stephen. Iowa State, non-conference portion of the schedule, 9-1. Right. That one loss to Iowa, a game that they really couldn't get anything going early on. I think they came back, almost pulled out the win there in Iowa City, but that 9-1 non-conference, that's not too bad.
No, not at all. And they fought all game long.
Yeah.
Got off to a really slow start. Weren't with starter Chelsea Poppins.
Yep.
Back and forth towards the end of the game, and it turned out to be a close one in the end. Looks a little different on the chart. But,
right. No game though really in the non-conference portion was really it wasn't really close. Besides that Iowa game, I mean, really a lot of blowout wins for Iowa State, and just looked good. I mean, they had Chelsea Poppins; she was healthy up until they went down. Was it to the Bahamas? I think down to the Bahamas for the Junkaroo Jam, I think they called it. And Poppins got injured down there. I think it was a game against Loyola Marymount where she had that concussion, so she was out for about 3 or 4 games. She was out, I think, until what was the game she came back? Was it UNI or was it Air Force?
It was
the
UNI game.
Yeah, and so up until that point, I mean, they really had to find contributions from other players on the bench. I mean, they went to Amanda Zimmerman to try to find help, but really Iowa State needed help from Chelsea Poppins. I mean, obviously the scoring numbers were down. They needed that offense from her, and they really didn't have it.
No, they didn't, and it was important for some of the other players to step up, like Prinz and Christopherson, and they really did that. And you kind of talk about trying to find a leader on that team, and there really isn't a single sole leader. Christopherson playing some of the best basketball she's been playing, Prinz playing some of the best basketball that the team needs, and kind of really heading into that deeper part of the conference schedule. It's going to be important.
So they start the non-conference, Dean, at 9-1, and they come back. Start off with a big overtime win against Texas. That was a good way to start the conference schedule for them. I mean, big confidence booster to get an overtime win at home.
And it's such a contrast from last year. Yeah. They start off 0-5 in the Big 12. You know, they dig themselves out of the hole, and they end up making the NCAA tournament in the toughest women's basketball conference in the country. But yeah, it's a huge difference. I think a lot of it has to go out to the play of Nikki Moody, the play of Hallie Christopherson, and obviously a healthy Anna Prinz is a huge factor on this team.
I think you're exactly right. I think Nikki Moody and Anna Prinz are probably playing the best basketball they ever played, especially Anna Prinz, who is really finally healthy for once in her career as a Cyclone. I mean, she hadn't played a full season in her first 3 years there. Obviously struggling. I mean, that if you're not practicing with your teammates, you're not out there on the floor, it's going to hurt your offense production. Finally starting to pick things up. She's averaging 10 points. About 6 rebounds per game, so they're really getting some good contributions from the senior Prinz.
Yeah, and Prinz is getting down low. Yep. She loves getting that rebound, offensive rebounds, defensive rebounds, and then putting it right back up, especially on the offense, really helping the Cyclones get some second chance points.
She's no Brittany Griner. They may be the same height. She's no Brittany Griner, though. Obviously, I would say 2 losses to Baylor. So far this year. I think that's a huge advantage for them, though, Kody. I think that the 2 games already against Baylor, they don't have to play the number 1 team in the country for the rest of the season. A lot of teams haven't even played Baylor yet.
Right, and Baylor's a step ahead of everyone. I think they've proven that last year, and they have most of their team back this year. Getting those out of the way quickly, so then you can kind of build your confidence as the season goes in, and you don't get crushed by a team in the middle of the year and kind of ruin your momentum.
So they go on the road and they get a loss to Baylor, come back with a couple wins, TCU, and a really nice win against a ranked Oklahoma team where you thought, okay, this team's back. Okay, this team might be moving in a positive direction. Then they head down to Stillwater. It seems like Stillwater is just a dangerous place for Iowa State. Hopefully things will be different on Wednesday for the men, but Iowa State just really, that was their worst game of the season. 42-71, they lose down in Stillwater. Steve, I don't know if you caught that game, but Iowa State just could not get a shot to fall.
No, they really couldn't. And Coach Finley talked a little bit about that loss, and they had those 2 losses to Baylor and the loss to Iowa without Chelsea Poppins. The Oklahoma State loss was really their only really bad loss. I guess just they come back and they lose at Oklahoma State, lose to Baylor at home, and kind of get in that 2-game skid, but then come back on the road at West Virginia and snap that skid.
Right, so they come back.
It just reminds me so much of last year's team. I covered the team last year. I'm not covering them this year. But last year, I covered the game where they just get embarrassed by Texas A&M. You talk to Bill Fenley, a raspy Bill Fenley, a battling Bill Fenley after the game, and he's talking about how they're going to evaluate it from top to bottom, from coaches to players. And I know that Fenley.
They'll talk. Right?
I mean, I know Fenley does that after games. But I mean, they were so down after that game, and then they come back and they go 8-4 in their next 12. Make the NCAA tournament. It just reminds me of just how gritty of a team this is. I mean, don't they only go 6 deep?
Yeah,
really. I
they
mean,
really do.
Not a lot of teams are able to do that. I really just have to chalk it up to Prinz being healthy, Christopherson emerging, and Nikki Moody last year after the first game, I asked if she was the most talented player on the team. And you have to think that she is. What a grab for Fenley to bring her up here from Texas, an area around Baylor, around big programs down there. And the emergence of her, she was leading at one point the country in assists. I think she's tied for the Big 12 lead now. She's so talented. She cut down her turnover. She's got that freshman year out of the way. I mean, her emergence and Prinz's healthiness, I think they're going to be headed back to the dance.
Yeah, and I think you're right. And they had a big come-from-behind win, Stephen, against West Virginia on Sunday. They had a big win, 53-49 on the road. That, to me, really stood out because to be able to come back in an unfamiliar territory, going to play West Virginia for the first time in program history, I believe, out there in Morgantown, and to be able to pull out a win there, that's a big road winner for them. They need those.
Fenley talked about it all through the week, how it's important to finish out January. 2 road games, it's kind of a tough challenge, but he presented it to his players, and I think they handled it very well. Got the first half of it done at West Virginia, and now they have to go to Kansas and play them there.
I got a question, Stephen. Maybe for our viewers, especially myself, who hasn't had a chance to see Kid Blaskowski play. Tell us about her. I mean, she's that new freshman. She's probably one of the. She only averages about 7 points a game, but just fill us in a little bit about her for maybe a viewer that hasn't seen a game.
Yeah, she's kind of that spark off the bench, like you guys were talking about men's basketball and Tyrus McGee. She's kind of that spark that comes off the bench. Hasn't started. I think she started 1 game before conference play, but she's versatile, down low, drives to the basket. If she can't make the basket, she shoots it back out to Prinz or whoever's out there, but can also hit that 3. And the thing about Kid making those threes is it gets Hilton going, and you kind of talked a little bit about that Hilton magic or whatever, but I think it's so important for the crowd to kind of get in with women's game. Not as many fans there, but the fans or the players have always talked about how important it is to kind of feed off that energy of the crowd and kind of get them into the game as well.
And Hilton's a top place for women's national attendance.
Yeah, absolutely. Top 10 in attendance. Always get good numbers there. You always expect a good crowd, a good rowdy crowd.
Good rowdy crowd for Fenley's Fenley Cyclones at Hilton.
Absolutely. Big contest coming up on Wednesday as Iowa State plays Kansas. Iowa State head coach Bill Fenley previewed that game for us earlier today.
A team that was in the Sweet 16 last year and basically has their whole team back, including Carolyn Davis, who comes off an ACL tear. But, a team that we've always had great games with. You're playing in a historic place and against a team that knows how to play, very experienced team. Bonnie's teams are always efficient offensively, very smart defensively. And the uniqueness of their team, unlike some of the teams we've played maybe since Texas, is they have 2 really good, long, athletic post players. We've run into teams that have one big guy to have to guard. They have 2, and Chelsea Gardner got a lot of PT when Carolyn got hurt, and now they're playing them together. So that's a little bit different, and we've got to do a better job of staying out of foul trouble. It's something that we've always been a team that fouls very rarely, and lately we put ourselves in position to where we've gotten a few fouls and we've had to manage some time with Anna and Pop. So we got to be better at that. But like every other team, we know we're going to face a really good team that's, they're coming off a loss, so I'm sure we're going to get their best shot. And as everyone starts looking at schedule, last game of the first half, so everyone's starting to pay a little more attention to the standings. And, KU and us are going to be teams that are fighting it out for that middle, to get in that top 6, hopefully. And so it's a great opportunity to go play in a great place and hopefully play well. What I try and tell our kids is we got to do a better job of doing the work before they catch the ball. We're kind of a half a count late. Sometimes it's a scouting report error. But most of the time, it's just, you got to just be a little more efficient. Sometimes you get caught in the wrong place at the wrong time. I think the other thing is avoid an offensive foul. Sometimes, in every game that we've had where we have had offensive fouls, that's led to foul trouble. So, we got to just be more efficient. And certainly it's got to be coached better. It's got to be managed better. There's a lot of little things. And sometimes it's just the quirk of the game and who you end up guarding. And there's so many different things that happen. But it hasn't dramatically impacted people's minutes, but enough where it's something that we've got to address it and figure out a better way to do it. Well, Hallie's someone that, we've talked a lot about her and the kind of kid that deserves a lot of credit for her effort. She's a kid that sometimes I literally have to go up to her before practice and say, hey, I'm sorry, I haven't talked to you in about 3 weeks, but she's the least maintenance human being I've ever been around. I mean, it's just incredible. But every day she's in the gym and every day she's around is a better day for us. She's that kind of person. And I bet you that's what the design college people say. I bet you that's what everyone says about her. But the other thing about it is, Rob, is practice is over and she's arguably playing as well as anyone on our team. She usually is the last one to leave the gym. What a coincidence. You're just working a lot harder. And she's accepted the fact that we need her to be assertive. That's not in her personality, but she's taken some big shots, tough shots. The other night she guarded their point guard and their center at one point during the game. We play her at the 3, the 4. We asked her to do a lot of things. And to her credit, she's accepted that and worked towards it and has gone from, I want to be a good player, a role player, to someone that wants the ball and is hunting her shot a little bit more. And she hit a couple shots in the West Virginia game that probably a month ago she would never have taken it, let alone make it. So you can kind of see the way she's carrying herself a little bit more. And but just an amazing young person. Our university is so lucky she's here.
So there you have it. There's Bill Finley's take on the number 23 Iowa State Cyclones. Got a tough test, Stephen, on Wednesday. Team Kansas, what do we say the record was coming in? 12-6, 3-4 in the conference. Mm-hmm. And Iowa State's struggled a little bit against Kansas in past, you said.
Yeah, they the past two years in a row, overtime losses, double overtime last year, overtime the year before that. The 2011 game separated by a point in overtime.
Yep.
So when they go down to Kansas, it's almost like the men's team kind of. It's a tough place to play in the fog.
I think if I remember correctly, that game last year at Kansas, that Kansas hit a shot at the very end of regulation to send it to overtime, and then they hit another shot in overtime to send it to double overtime. So that was a game Iowa State could taste it, similar to that Kansas game for the men this year. They could just taste that win. Almost had it, but obviously, Dean, this is going to be a tough test for Iowa State down there in Lawrence.
Yeah, I think the Big 12, Fenley said it time and time again that it's the best basketball conference in the country. And I think
he says that almost every time.
Every time we talk to him. I mean, they are 3-4 in the Big 12, or they're 12-6 overall. Mm-hmm. I think top to bottom, this conference is pretty tough to play in.
Yeah, and Kody, how important do you think it's going to be for Hallie Christopherson to have a good game? She's averaging 14.5 points per game for Iowa State, leading them. Averaging about 7 rebounds per game, shooting almost 46% from 3. They're going to need her to step up.
Yeah, and I think she's really starting to play the best ball that she has all season and probably in her career. Sometimes they can be a little challenged on the offensive end, and she really has that versatility where she can go inside and outside and give them, another dimension that they might not have otherwise.
Somebody asked her today, Stephen, if Hallie Christopherson could be a potential star in the Big 12 in college basketball, and Finley said yes, she can, and I think she's on the verge of doing that. I mean, averaging, stepping in there when Chelsea Poppins goes down. I mean, Chelsea Poppins, she's got that All-American Twitter account. I mean, and when she's averaging more rebounds, more points per game than the potential All-American, that's something special.
Yeah, Finley said it today. She could definitely be the next star on this team, and he really put it to a way that Poppins, coming into the season, Poppins could be the star, the senior that is breaking all these records or whatever. But with this team, there's really no star to it. Hallie Christopherson, Prinz, like you said, playing the best basketball of their games. But yeah, I mean, Christopherson's numbers are outrageous. Past 4 games, she's averaging 17.5 points, 7.5 rebounds, 100% on free throw shooting. So Finley said it today that you can block her all you want. She's going to make the shot. You foul her, she's going to go to the free throw line, and she's going to make those free throws.
She's the kind of player that Finley said, you'll find her in the gym before everyone gets there, and she's the last one to leave. Yep. I think that's something special. I think that really means to me that she could be that star for Iowa State, and that's what they're going to need from her. I mean, she's still got another year after this, and she's still got a lot of room to improve. So that's, I mean, for her to be where she's at right now is really, really special for Iowa State.
Yeah, I think, people see Poppins on this team, people see Nikki Moody, but I think, she was kind of like a Melvin Edgin of sorts, especially last year. She's quiet, but she hits 3, she rebounds, and she has that scoring punch. You could see a Big 12 selection, whether that's first, second, or third team. Or third team or honorable mention, I'm not really sure. But certainly next year when they lose Poppins and Prinz in that starting lineup, you're going to need to see Christopherson step up. Like you guys said, like the numbers you threw out, Stephen, she's really stepped her game up. She can score from inside and out, and they're going to need her to play well.
Iowa State is 3-3 overall on the road this season, 2-2 in conference play. Stephen, do they advance to 3-2 in the conference tomorrow?
I think so. These past couple games they've been really close, but I think the team has found their identity within themselves. Having Kidd come off the bench, giving that little bit of extra spark, even on the road. I think Prinz has a big game. Christopherson, Poppins, if they all have big games, I think they can do it.
I think Poppins has her best game that she's had in a long time. I think they're going to need her to. I think she's going to step up on the road. I think she's going to probably get 15, 20 points in that game. She needs it too. I think there's no doubt that Poppins needs a good game. She's still second on the team in points, but I just said she missed a few games earlier on in the non-conference portion of the schedule. But I think they're definitely going to need her to step up. I think they do. I think they pull out a win in Lawrence, Dean.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think they're hot right now. They've played really well their last couple games. Yep. And, I think they're going to pull it out in Lawrence.
Cody?
Yeah, I think they're really going to ride the momentum they just got in West Virginia. A comeback win on the road is huge for a team's confidence. I think they can probably ride that into Lawrence.
All right, guys. That was a good first show. I think we definitely want to thank previous guest Matt Rhoades for coming on with us. We're going to be back next Monday at 8 p.m. for another episode of Cyclone InCYders. Thanks for joining us, guys.